Good afternoon. This is Jerry Morton DeWitt again with her chapters videos. This is episode 2. And I want to talk a little bit today about some of my childhood things. One of the things that is interesting to me is that this is the oldest thing I think that I have in my house, besides me and Bill. But anyway, it's an old sewing box, sewing basket. And it was given to me when I was like about 12 years old, 11, 12. And it was given to me by what turned out to be later my brother-in-law, Seth Morton. He played trombone when he was a kid, and I played piano when I was a kid. And I accompanied him for his solo at the contest. And my wonderful mother-in-law, Jean Morton, she had picked that out for him to give to me as a present for, a thank you present for accompanying him on his trombone. Well, anyway, so every week I'll have something to show you that I think is maybe something that's interesting, not just looking at my face. Okay, so I was baptized as an infant in December of 1956 at Nazareth Lutheran Church in Coulter, Iowa. At that time, that Lutheran church was a part of the American Lutheran Church, vastly different from the denomination that I ended up as a pastor in. Very much Midwestern and very much more probably moderate, a little bit conservative, maybe a little bit liberal, but more moderate in social stance, political stance than what the denomination turned out to be here recently. But anyway, that's another story. Maybe I'll talk about that later a little bit. But so anyway, when I was 2.5 years old, 22 months old, then my brother was born, John. And when I was 7 years old, my sister was born, Jennifer. And I'll tell you a funny story about when she was going to be born. Of course, John and I, we had to go to Grandma Esther's and Grandpa Harold's. That's my maternal grandparents, and they lived just up the street from us in Coulter, Iowa. And we had to go in the middle of the night, and I wasn't quite sure what was going on. But anyway, I remember, our dad telling us, well, you're gonna stay with Grandma Esther, and you're gonna get a baby. You're gonna get a baby's gonna come home with Mom and me. And so the next morning, anyway, well, first of all, my brother wanted to have a little brother, and I wanted to have a little sister. And this was back in the day when you didn't know, there wasn't sonograms, there wasn't all that. So anyway, the next morning, Grandma Esther, she got us up to the breakfast table, and she made the best oatmeal, really good. Anyway, but she says to us, she says, well, you've got a new little sister. And my brother looked kind of like this, and my grandma says, well, what's the matter, John? And he says, well, maybe when it comes home from the hospital, it'll be a boy. So we've always teased him incessantly since then. But anyway, Jennifer, she was kind of a tomboy sometimes. She was really good at softball, and she was really good at golf. She still is really good at golf. Well, anyway, so we lived out on the farm where my paternal grandparents lived in Morgan Township in Franklin County, Iowa. And it was a pretty good sized farm. There was a huge house that was the Christensen homestead, where C.P. Christensen had built it years before and had all the kids. And anyway, that's where Everett and Olive Christensen, those grandparents. My other grandparents were Harold and Esther Wasco, but where Grandpa Everett and Grandma Ollie Christensen lived, and we lived in what they called the little tenant house. So anyway, it was a little house that had didn't have indoor plumbing. It had water that went into the sink, if I remember right, but it didn't have any toilets in there. A cute story is when I was gonna be born, then my mother went over to tell Grandma Nan that she wanted to go to the hospital, but she had to go to the bathroom first. And my Grandma Nan said, well, don't go out to that outhouse to go to the bathroom before you head to the hospital. But anyway, so that's another cute story. So anyway, we moved to Coulter in town to a house when I was 3 years old, and John was 1, I think almost 2, or going to be 2 soon, shortly thereafter. And so anyway, I always used to love to run outside barefoot. And oh boy, I would stub my toes. When we moved to town, there was the concrete sidewalks, and I stubbed my toes, and I soon learned to wear my shoes all the time. And to this day, I don't like to go barefoot too much, especially outside, but I don't even like to go barefoot in the house. I think that made an impression on me. So anyway, it was good growing up. We went a lot out to the farm a couple miles away to my one set of grandparents, and then down the street to my other set of grandparents. My maternal grandfather was a butter maker, and he made award-winning butter. And so when I was age 13, I was confirmed in the American Lutheran Church in Coulter, Iowa, the Nazareth Lutheran. And then graduated when I was actually 17. My mother had sent me to kindergarten when I was 4. You could do that back then if they were ready. Oh yeah, I must have been so smart. No. But she sent me to kindergarten when I was 4. And so of course I graduated then when I was 17 and went to North Iowa Area Community College in Mason City. Well, I think that's enough for this video. Hope I've told you some kind of funny stories. And anyway, my grandparents were wonderful in my life when I was growing up, and hope that especially my kids and my grandkids enjoy this video. So, as I said before last time, with hope and confidence in Christ. Yes. And so have a great day. And may the peace of Christ be with you always.